Well, first of all, I'd like to make it clear how I arrived at this decision. The religious exemptions satisfy the separation of church and state. I congratulate everyone involved. Of course, the chair and I always have a very good relationship, and the sponsors and Senator Baroni, because there is the freedom to practice your own religion. That is not only remains intact in this bill with your amendment, it is even more secure, and we don't just stop at the church house door, but for the affiliate associations that have a relationship with a religious institution. So it is very broad in scope. So the First Amendment, freedom of religion to practice your religion, has, in my analysis, been satisfied. And I am satisfied that we have honored the separation between church and state. Because this issue here, in my analysis, is not what would I prefer, but really an analysis of what the Constitution requires. And when we get to the issue of the Constitution, when we talk about the pension and the insurance, and we have the letter from the Oxford Plan that defines, and this is, of course, by my wonderful constituent from Montclair, who always keeps us informed, is that a spouse, and they're defining it, a person's partner, husband or wife, in a legal marriage for purposes of dependent eligibility under this certificate. Spouse includes same-sex partners who are married in jurisdictions that recognize same-sex marriages. I know, Senator Bateman, that you're skillful. I know that you are a skillful legislator and a very good lawyer. But there's nothing you can do to enhance the civil union law to address this particular issue, because the insurance companies define what a spouse will mean, so that your best efforts will fall far from the mark. If you take the pension issues that were discussed and the increased difficulty in collective bargaining by trying to expand coverage under civil unions as opposed to marriage, and when we then make that analysis, this bill, or civil unions as they are now practiced, is separate and unequal. And so to delay the ability to marry on some idea that we can remedy it under the civil unions law, Oxford Insurance Plan tells you that is not going to happen. And if we have that, and the reason I am listened very closely, because the issue of health care, the issue of access to health insurance is a paramount issue in our society. And so what we cannot do under the civil is to give health care protection and access by letting same-sex marriages go forward. I think that that is monumental. So we have it where, what does this violate then, if anything? And I know what the Supreme Court said in its opinion, New Jersey Supreme Court. They said, given all of the history, given the Constitution, given the 1913 Marriage Act, history shows you could have never contemplated that marriage is between anything other than a man and a woman. Well, if you look at the Constitution and look at its intent, the Constitution intended that African Americans would never be full participants. The Constitution said we were 3/5 of a person. If you look to the intent, if you look to the intent of the Constitution, that is how the New Jersey Supreme Court arrived at its less than courageous opinion. The legislators here wouldn't be, the female ones would not be here, because the Constitution never intended for a woman to have the right to vote. And if we looked further at what the Constitution intended, as if it is a stagnant body, then we know that disabled people would have no rights to insist under the Equal Protection Clause that they have access to public buildings, that their disabilities will not be held against them to discriminate. And so, it is a civil rights issue, not because African Americans own the copyright to civil rights. It is a civil rights issue in the analysis of the Equal Protection and 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And maybe some in my community want to hold on to it because it's ours, because our blood has been shed for the right to vote. And we jealously guard that as a reaffirmation of being American. And so we hold it because no one can do civil rights and have civil rights better than we do. That's emotional, but it is certainly not an analysis of the constitutional imperatives that face us. It's a civil rights issue, and you could overlook the emotional issue, because each side has an emotional story to tell. So I am not involved in that, but I am involved in how does this strip people of the equality under the law. And as an African American, and as a woman who would jealously guard all the civil rights struggles, this is a civil rights struggle on the magnitude and importance for the people who have died for the right to vote, for the people who have died for the right to allow women to vote. And if I took a different stand, which would be a more traditional stand that the community that identifies with me wants me to take, then I will have breached the tradition and the trust of the elders and the ancestors. And so I vote for the equality in marriage because I believe in the Constitution.
Senator Judge.